So I'm HENRIK. I'm from the band Empyre. I'm the lead singer and, for the most part, rhythm guitarist. And we've just released our second electric album, effectively our third album, but a second electric album, Relentless, a collection of 10 songs that we've written over the course of the last 3 years.
Beautiful, Henry. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Having me.
As you mentioned, Empyre released your latest album, Relentless, back on March the 31st. So how's the early reception been for it?
Pretty strong, really. We've been really pleased with what we've seen in terms of a lot of the reviews that have come out so far of the album. I think that I haven't seen anything that's negative so far. I'm sure I will at some point. That's like undoubted, but so far most of it's been, in the higher range of the marks out of 10. So that's really pleasing. It's been great.
Cool. So tell us a bit more about Relentless from a musical point of view and what you were going for with it.
So there's no overall concept to the album. It's a collection of songs that we wrote over the course primarily of the last 3 years, although some of the songs started earlier. So songs like Relentless itself probably started writing that around the time our first album, Self-Aware, came out in 2019. And at least I had the idea for the riff and the chorus, the main parts of the song that I'd written back then, and then it was only during the course of the whole pandemic, the first year of that, when we started to put together the songs, where we really turned it into what it is now. Same with Road to Nowhere, they were early ones. And then I suppose we covered a reasonable amount of ground in terms of vibe of this album. Relentless, the song itself starts out as, generally, if you ignore the acoustic intro, a hard rock song. It's pretty straightforward in what it does. Then next song, Waking Light, we take a little bit more commercial, arguably a little bit more in the direction of Killers or Muse in terms of atmospheric, or a little bit slightly indie. Then Parasites, the third track, it starts out dark and angelic and goes about as metal as we've ever been. And then we've got other songs like Hit and Run, which has an 80s vibe to it, Forget Me, which is a big ballad, Quiet Commotion, which is a big ballad, and at the end, Your Whole Life Slows, which is a little bit more experimental.
So you mentioned the songs Relentless, Parasites, Hit and Run, and Waking Light. Like, all those four were released as singles. So were they chosen to represent the overall sonic structure of the album?
I think they give a good overview of that, because we started out with Relentless as the title track. We thought it's track one, it's the title track, and it's a relatively straightforward hard rock track. So you kind of know what you get, it sort of easing people in. Then we took it a little bit left field with Parasites. There were certain elements people won't have heard us do before. And then Hit and Run, where we brought this warmer 80s, slightly more poppy vibe to it. And in a similar way, kind of kept that with Waking Light in terms of something a little bit more commercial, a bit more mainstream, perhaps. But there are still on the album those kind of in excess of 5-6 minute sort of more epic tracks that I guess, for the people that know us, perhaps more familiar with from the sort of stuff we did on Self-Aware. But yeah, we picked those singles on purpose to give a broad overview, but have stuff that was generally accessible. Probably Parasites was the least accessible one. That one is a kind of, it'd been going down so well live. That's the reason we released it as a single, to see how it worked not in a live environment.
Okay, cool. And Waking Light was a particularly interesting release, with the video being done using AI. So run us through that.
It was we've been playing around with AI ideas for artwork probably since about last September, October time. I discovered the tool Midjourney and DALL-E, for those people are familiar of those sort of things. I guess these days ChatGPT is the thing everybody heard about. I was using effectively imaging tools where you could write in a prompt, which is a descriptive sentence, and then you'd get a picture come back from that prompt. So we used that first for the Parasite single cover, and then you did a little bit of manipulation in Photoshop afterwards. And after that, basically we thought, okay, what else, how far can we take this? I found an idea online that was about an infinite zoom. So I made about 1,000 frames worth of AI art and made some infinite zoom sequences. So it's quite a visually intensive video. It was kind of odd to make because I had to take screen breaks from the constant onslaught of imagery coming at my eyes when I was making it. So yeah, it's quite different from what we've ever done before, both in visual style, but we thought, what a good experiment, and let's see what we can do with AI. And I'm guessing, you know, in a year's time, it'll probably look pretty basic compared to whatever's available then.
Yeah. So overall, how would you say that Relentless differs musically to your debut album, Self-Aware?
It's a lot more complex, or at least there are a lot more parts, and we used, I think in Self-Aware, it was pretty much, for the most part, 2 guitars, bass and drums, and there wasn't a whole lot, and apart from vocals, wasn't a whole lot else instrumentation wise that we put into that album. There are only a few bits where we'd add maybe a 3rd guitar part, but when it came to Relentless, we didn't really hold back in terms of what we used and what we did. So if there's a song that wanted 4 guitar parts, we just put 4 guitar parts in there, and we thought, we'll worry about it later, how we actually do this live. And a little bit like discovering AI over the course of the last year or so. Back at the beginning of the pandemic, found out about just using samples and orchestration. So a track like Cry Wolf has a whole minute of just orchestrated intro. We thought, we'll try it as experimentally. Actually written some orchestration for the breakdown part of that song, and guitar solo. We liked it so much, we thought we could build it, and it deserved the whole orchestral part. There's some choir that goes into Parasites. Quiet Commotion's got synth throughout it as well as orchestration. And Forget Me, I think at some part in that song, I reckon there's 4, possibly even 5 guitar parts working in some parts of that song, and then sometimes orchestration on top. So it was a lot more putting together and really analyzing the parts and picking the songs to pieces. Yeah, just a lot more complex, really.
And your music traverses everything from rock to progressive rock and metal to metal. So has this always been a focus of the band to cover so many genres?
We just tend to write what we like. If it sounds good to us, then we're kind of happy with the song. So there's a term, I don't know whether we coined it, but I came up with it a couple of weeks ago because so many people bring this up. So we now define ourselves as genre fluid.
Genre fluid, I like it.
Yeah. So because it's like, well, yeah, I can only just getting broader in what we do rather than narrower. So we need yeah, no barriers. So genre fluid is what we are.
And how do you find the balance within your music with those? Like, so you know how far you've gone with one style and when to cut it off and when to bring another style in. Is there any sort of set formula for that?
No, there's no set formula for those things. The only way that I could say that we construct an album or decide on what songs to do is a little bit like we would take Self-Aware as a base and look, okay, what do we like? What would we like to do more of in terms of a style? Or we do like to have a broad range of stuff on an album. So Only Way Out was our big ballad from Self-Aware, and I thought, well, I would like one of those, at least one of those on the new album. So that Forget Me is pretty much that, but also Quiet Commotion is a bit of a ballad. And then he wrote probably most Parasites, and it was a case of, well, Republic was perhaps the biggest hard rock track from Self-Aware, so we thought, well, we could do with a new Republic, if you put it that way. So there are certain things that we would perhaps want to put in an album, but I don't know whether we'll do that next time. It's just kind of how we approach this one. It's like, well, we need something heavy and we need something at the other end, and then anything else that came in between. I mean, I don't even know how you'd define something like Your Whole Life Slows. It's got a weird sample that's based on Grant's washing machine that runs throughout it, and that's not, that is what it's based on. It's got some synth, it's got some rock, it's got some orchestration. It's not a purposefully, I mean, it's not even really a prog track. It's just a bit experimental, but it kind of bookends a different end of where Relentless starts off, which is just pure hard rock based on it's vaguely inspired by Night Train by Guns N' Roses is the track Relentless. So it's like we put in whatever we fancy and whatever sounds good to our ears.
Cool. And the press release says that you're a band well known for your self-deprecating sense of humor. I've got to know what they mean by that, bro.
Well, I suppose it's less from the music side of things, but it's more from the way that we know that we come across as quite serious often when we're playing. While we do take it, our music career very seriously, we at the moment tend to be playing with a lot of bands that are more upbeat than us. It's just the scene that we're in at present. So we have a bit of a joke that, we get thrown into the mix in a festival or wherever else to kill the vibe. Yes. So we basically play on that. And we brought out a t-shirt at one point that had the 3 rules of Empyre, which is no singing, no clapping, and no looking like you're having a good time. And that grew from the fact of when we were starting out and we were playing festivals and we're with a lot of upbeat bands, and then you get us and we start playing stuff like Only Way Out and Stone, and you get some people who are crying in the audience and some people who are just standing there not really knowing how to take us and thinking maybe we're taking ourselves too seriously. But it's just our vibe. That's just what we do. So we thought, okay, well, we'll play on this kind of like where people don't quite know where to put us, so they just stand there arms folded thinking, now is this rock, is this prog, is this something else? And yeah, that's where we went from. And it just I guess the whole genre fluid thing is again a bit tongue-in-cheek, so we kind of like to go down that avenue, and it's a good laugh that we can have as people get to know us. Just something we have with the audience. I mean, now we're encouraging booing. It's a bit like, I don't know, do you have pantomimes in Oz like we do in the UK? I don't think that many people have that.
Yeah, they're not that popular, but they are here.
Yeah, so it's kind of like we just kind of encourage people rather than, and this, well, backtrack a bit. Quite often, if things have been going well at the end of a set and we say, we come to the last song, and then people would boo, and we would, not booing us, booing the fact that they'd like to play longer and our time slot is up. So we kind of encourage that, but now it's a case of people will just boo between songs at whatever we say. It's like being a pantomime baddie. It's entertaining, it's funny, and I think it just confuses the people and the band and other bands thinking, what on earth is going on? If they're hearing it from afar, then it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of an in-joke. It's good.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, way more respect for you after hearing that, bro. That's awesome.
Thanks.
All right, bro. Well, thanks very much for your time tonight. The album Relentless is out now, and she's an absolute cracker, mate. Well done with it. So what's next for Empyre? What do you got planned?
So got a few gigs lined up over here in the UK at least. We've got our next week, we've got our Relentless release party, and then we're doing another acoustic gig, and then we're just starting to do headline gigs. So that's something new for us because we're certainly not well known in Australia, and we're only just getting known in the UK. So we're just getting that stage where we can intersperse a few headline gigs with a few other things that we're doing. And then it's summer festivals, biggest probably STEENHOLDT festival. I think, Airborne are playing there. So big acts of Blackstone Cherry and us and a whole load of other people. So it's going to be a mixture of a few headline gigs, a few festival gigs, and hopefully before the end of the year we'll get on to we'll get a tour and at least be able to cover some of the UK ground.
Very nice. All right, mate. Well, thanks for your time. Been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and we'll see if you come over to Australia any time in the future.
Well, fingers crossed, Kris. Hope so. And yeah, thanks for having me.